Clubhouse.
You're not being blackmailed, Mom. I'm everything you've always wanted me to be. Clear-eyed, ruthless, a killer. Hell, I'm the image of your father.
I hated my father. He was a miserable man. I prayed to God that you and Joaquin would be happier than him.
You don't believe in God any more than I do. Only God you see is in yourself. That shit is hereditary.
Welcome to Pod Clubhouse's coverage of Dutton Ranch, the newest entry into the Yellowstone universe of shows. This is Caroline.
And this is Mike. Tonight we're discussing episode 7 of Dutton Ranch, Den of Sin. Tonight's episode was co-written by Chad Feehan, series creator, and Jacob Foreman. It was directed by Phil Abraham. Jacob Foreman previously wrote episode 2 of this season, so he's back again.
Just a community note, please join us on Facebook in the Yellowstone 1923-1883, the Madison and Dutton Ranch discussion and news group to discuss Dutton Ranch and the whole universe of Taylor Sheridan and Yellowstone shows. Just a reminder, we assume you've watched this episode, so we're not going to go step by step and recap, but we'll hit the highs and lows and we'll definitely spoil stuff for you. So if you haven't watched, please put us on pause, go watch, and come on back.
I know when you were watching this, there were some things that were taking you out of the episode a little bit. Talk to us about Texas weather and costuming.
Oh my, I mean, they did a really good job at the beginning of the season of talking about how hot it was even at 4 a.m. And I understand that they may not have had time to go do an entire shopping spree since they've come down from Montana. However, seeing these guys in these heavy, heavy blanket coats like Beth was wearing at this party, that outside party, no fans, no Mr. Fans, no nothing going on, all outdoors. I was feeling like, did Beulah pass out of heat stroke? Because, I mean, the reality is it would have been so unbelievably hot. And you know what? Beth came out in that really slinky, beautiful, tank style top dress. Everything was very pretty. I don't know why she left that giant coat on. I wasn't sure what we were doing there.
It made sense to me when they were horseback riding, right? Though I can't imagine horseback riding in that dress. But yeah, when she's at the party, why is she in there,
Especially because, so my two girls ride, and let me just tell you that, they would get, heat rash on their legs because of the heat of the horse.
Sure.
So you have to even think about that. You're, riding on, a heater, Very hot. I could not, an outdoor party like that, and I appreciated, the antler chandelier when she was kind of sort of standing in that stage area, but there would have been a fan. There would have been so many fans. They have, party fans that people rent out and everything. So I honestly, I felt for the actors because there's no way they were not just melting in this situation. What do you think of Beulah's beautiful flower-themed pantsuit?
I had a note in here that I wrote Texas haute couture, right? The floweriness of it, and it was like a pantsuit kind of thing. It looked like the highest of Texas fashion, the way the show was kind of selling it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it felt very formal wear. It had a lot of that sort of South Texas feel to me. I thought it was very beautiful. For me, I just was feeling like, oh my gosh, she must just be so hot. It was so fitted and just didn't look breathable or anything to me. She had so many accessories on. I was as soon as I saw her, I was like, oh girl, I wish you would go back and either take off the scarf or wear contacts tonight or do something. She had just so much going on that I was like, it's just got to feel so weighed down. Like I said, by the end of the evening, I was thinking this could be as simple as heat stroke because it is just so unbelievably hot. But she looked beautiful and appropriate for the occasion. I think all those men would have had those sports coats off pretty quickly, and she looked the part for the evening.
Just a little, one more subtle nod to costuming. This is the first episode that we didn't see Everett wearing his HAL 3 cap. He exchanged it for this event with a, say with me, black cowboy hat. Ed Harris in a black cowboy hat feels like Ed Harris. I mean, any fans of Westworld out here are like, yeah, that looks right. That's what
the only other time we saw him wearing a cowboy hat was at the funeral of the previous sheriff. Even then, it actually kind of took me aback that he was wearing a black hat. I was like, oh, okay. And I was justifying it that, well, it's a funeral, so a black hat would seem appropriate. So I wasn't trying to assign too much, villain versus hero symbolism to it at that time. But now, if again, black hat is more formal wear, so you could lean that way as well. But I think that given the fact that he was climbing out of Beulah's bed in just our last episode, we can say black hat it is.
And Joaquin wearing his hat today, first thing his mother says to him when she sees him is, nice hat. And he tips it. That was the exact kind of reaction he was looking for after that scene last week. It was fitted now. It was creased out. It was all done up, and he was wearing it like a proud peacock because he walks into her office to discuss her speech, which is supposed to be crowning him as the successor, the boss of the Plains. And I mean, it doesn't work out that way, but that hat represents his entire image of himself in that moment.
Everyone looked very handsome. Everybody was doing their part.
This episode was interesting. It had a lot of foreshadowing, and I think it has some foreshadowing about what maybe will happen later in the series, at least as relates to Joaquin and to Beulah. I think as we go through, we can talk about, the individual instances of, oh, look at this, pay attention to this here. One of the early ones to me, and maybe it wasn't foreshadowing as much as maybe irony, was in the opening flashback where in Billy Bob's, which is a real place, it boasts itself as the largest honky-tonk in the world. It's a 100,000 square foot club. It's still open. It was open in 1981. It's still open now. The song they're playing over a lot of the scene is Waylon Jennings singing Good Hearted Woman. This was a song he actually co-wrote with Willie Nelson, and he put out in 1972. But just the idea of Beulah as the good-hearted woman as things play out with Luke, and just as she's carrying her business in the present, there's a message being said there. You could have played any song from the myriad of country music history. So for them to be playing Waylon's Good-Hearted Woman, I thought was at minimum a little tongue-in-cheek, if not full-on foreshadowing. What did you think of the nostalgia of the Billy Bob scene, the old sack and save? Did they do a good job of recreating Texas nostalgia for you? There's the shout out to the shockwave at Six Flags Over Texas.
Well, it's not nostalgia for me, exactly. Billy Bob still exists, like I said. I've been there.
As does the shockwave.
Yeah, Billy Bob's is a really cool place. Definitely, if you're around, you should go check it out. Six Flags, hilarious. I mean, we had a Six Flags here in Houston, Astroworld, of course. So we don't have that anymore, but there's still one up in the Fort Worth, Arlington area. Yeah, that Six Flags flex was hilarious to me. I was like, oh my God, it more just made me feel like young again, of like the things that are a flex, like the idea that you worked at Six Flags could be like that exciting, like, ooh la la, you're a Six Flags man, like how exciting. All of that was making me smile. And, I appreciated all the feathered hair. There was so much feathered hair everywhere. I
could smell the Aquanet, I felt like. Let's actually start the episode and talk through Beulah, because I think via Beulah, it actually takes us through a lot of the episode. Let's start with that flashback. It's Fort Worth. It's August 1981. So they're putting us some 45 years ago. We get to see young Beulah. We get to see young Mariano. This is the first time we've seen any version of Mariano on the screen, who was, going back to her conversation, Beulah's conversation with Beth at the end of last week, he was indeed a ranch hand. He was charged with babysitting her. I thought that was an interesting thing, because we see in the present how Beulah uses Miguel to babysit Oriana. That wasn't something she came up with. This is a Jackson learned behavior. We keep the wayward children with a babysitter. What's your take on this scene, the way it plays out with Mariano wasn't being distracted for very long, and everything that seemed to have happened horribly to Beulah in that time? Why here in episode 7 do you think the show felt we needed to see this part?
Well, we had left our last episode with Beulah giving us this story of how her boys came to be. This was picking up basically where we left off with that about, we were very suspicious of the story. It didn't sound right to us. It seemed like she was telling a story that didn't make any sense. And now we basically get Rob Will's origin story, and we have Joaquin's father, Mariano. So we basically get that origin story as well. And I think that we see that Oriana is not so different from Beulah for all of the finger wagging that Beulah was doing. I mean, she basically is acting the same exact way. I felt awful for her, of course. I mean, it looked like it was a horrible decision to leave that club that night and do what she was doing. It was a terrible scene. And, you know, I felt horrible for her. And for Mariano, like, I know there was a distraction with the bartender, but that was like so typical, you know, like, of course the bartender's going to come over and chat you up. You know, you're sitting at the bar. He should have known that Beulah was going to be that slippery, that he should have kept a better eye on her. But of course the story wouldn't happen unless we do have a distraction there.
I mean, the fact that Luke pays the bartender to distract him looks like some real premeditation on his part too. You know, at a minimum, he was planning on getting her out of there.
Well, do you think that Beulah has whispered to Luke, you gotta go do this in order for us to get out of here?
I mean, that probably feels right. I'm sure Luke probably doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who pays money for any kind of thing unless he's being told to.
That's shockwave money. Come on, he doesn't have extra green for that.
I mean, Shockwave's still open though, so he's done a good job of mechanicking it. But yeah, I mean, it didn't seem like he was distracted by the bartender for so very long. So it feels like he must have lost track of her before even that point, though, drinking his coffee, which maybe is a testament to how often they've done this without incident. You know, I think if this is the first time he had ever been put in this position, maybe he would have been more hawk-like in observing her and her friends. But coming out of the back of the truck and the two friends being there with and stuff, and because there hadn't been an incident before, maybe he was more complacent about it. If you think about the timing of what must have happened, he realizes it, they're gone, they're not in the parking lot. It's not like a situation, I thought it was going to be like a gravel spitting kind of thing and then he's following.
Me too.
But he's just randomly driving around and then sees her outside the Sack and Save all bruised and missing her boot and her shirt torn. Originally, I thought maybe Luke committed the sexual assault in his truck and then dumped her out at the Sack and Save. But that doesn't really make sense because she knows where he lives. They don't live in Fort Worth. They live in Rio Paloma, this was a travel to get here. So presuming that she didn't know Luke beforehand, which it did not seem, she must have been at his place to be able to come back there later on to shoot him as she does and find her missing boot. So he takes her to the place. How does she get back to the Sack and Save? Did he drive her there? Did she stumble and walk there from afterwards? It's a show, whatever. I'm not going to get hung up on the fast travel timing of it all, but I guess my point is it seems like he really dropped the ball here by allowing all of this to happen in doesn't seem like a terribly long amount of time.
I agree. And because the bartender cops to the situation pretty quickly, like moments, really.
Interesting. We also learned that Joaquin had already been born at that point, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Which means he's the older brother, which is not exactly what I thought.
He does have little younger brother energy, that is for sure.
He does.
Absolutely. If you think back to her story from last week, she says, and then baby Joaquin fell into my lap, a ranch hand who got on the wrong side of the law.
Oh, we don't need to do accents, sir.
Sorry. Okay. And then we think back to the conversation from last week where she's telling Beth that, and then baby Joaquin fell into my lap, a ranch hand who got on the wrong side of the law, couldn't take care of him, and so I adopted him. Well, that's a version of the truth, but it probably feels like Mariano is going to end up taking the fall for what Beulah did here tonight, and that she will end up taking Joaquin because Mariano's going to go to jail for shooting Luke twice.
And or flees to Mexico. I don't know if he's going to go to jail. I think it's possible that 10 Petals will get you across the border, but don't step foot back into Texas. If we find out that you're anywhere here, we will accuse you and press charges and all the things and turn you into the law. Given their aversion to the law, I don't think that it necessarily went that way. I don't think there was a trial and all the things. I think that maybe they sort of did the story is you came, you shot him, this is what happened, and you need to get out of the country.
I want to play the clip of Beulah and Beth talking at the bar from last week just to revisit a couple of points, because I think in light of this episode, I think what she tells Beth is interesting to revisit and kind of analyze a little bit. So just bear with me as we go back in the time machine to last week.
His daddy died in an awful flood before he was born. Then little baby Joaquin was dropped in my lap. Yeah, by a ranch hand who he got on the wrong side of the law. I was scared till that survival instinct kicked in. After that, I had no problem putting a bullet in the skull of anything that threatened my boys.
I think that last part is very interesting because she has Mariano drive her to Luke's trailer. She says to him very calmly, he goes, "Are you sure? I'll stay here." And she's like, he has a right to know, meaning Luke has a right to know that he's about to be a father. Very calm, gives a reason. She goes in, and then we see her shoot him with his back turned in the skull, and then shoots him again when he's on the floor. 2 shots, very premeditated, because she comes out and she's smiling when she says, "Found my missing boot." Watch that scene with the echo of, I was scared, my survival instinct kicked in, and then I had no problem putting a bullet in someone's skull that threatened, she says, my boys, but maybe her. There are echoes of truth in everything she said to Beth, but through a very specific lens or through a skewed lens. It's just,
I definitely think that you can take it like not like a literal flood, but a flood of emotions, all the emotions. I mean, how she must have felt to have that EPT test, which, kudos to them for finding one from the 80s that, looked like the chemistry set that it looked like from so back then. And, the absolute flood of emotions that she was having, like, let's go with that was more of a metaphor. He died in a flood. For her, I think it was pretty realistic. She could not have this man come and try to claim paternity of this kid. She couldn't have there be a link to her entire legacy. She had to have this person gone off the planet. And I mean, she wanted consequences for what he did to her and what he was doing to her for the rest of her days. She is now a very young, pregnant woman, unmarried here. Everything we've heard about her father did not sound like he was going to be remotely an understanding person or a soft place to fall. So we knew that she was going to have to go and tell him something of how this all happened, which we haven't gotten there yet, because how is she pregnant? Is this wherever it comes into play? Maybe does he become like the white knight who says, I'll marry her, it can be my child, whatever the things are to save, honor for her, somebody's got to.
Another part from that conversation from last week, Beulah talked to Beth that she had a theory that the harder the pregnancy, the more wayward the child. Or more difficult the child, the darker the heart, or harder the heart, I think is what she says. It wasn't the delivery necessarily with Rob Will, but maybe the conception of Rob Will that led to him having the hard heart. Just sharing the genetics of Luke, who would rape a woman. It's not necessarily a metaphor of the hard pregnancy. It's more just basic genetics of the man. So just moving through now with Beulah, the show is very deliberate, I think, in giving us otherwise establishing shots or tracking shots or scenes that don't necessarily seem like they add to the plot, like Joaquin and being in the hat store last week. But I think there's a reason for it. I think it was interesting that we got to see so much of Beulah doing the party prep, and not that she was just making sure everything was done, but she was micromanaging things. The fact that when she stopped the cook or the chef assistant who was slicing the orange,
I think it was probably the caterer,
the caterer, and corrected the right knife to slice the oranges with, I was like, oh, okay, we've learned something right now about Beulah, because we haven't actually seen her micromanaging the business at this point, right? She's going through foremen like water. She just hired Rip. Like, she's not taking a direct hand in running the ranch. She's delegating that. So this was an interesting side to her that we hadn't seen before. What did it reveal to you?
I was getting Emily Gilmore vibes. The 6-inch candle tapers was what was going through my brain. Women who grow up in a certain echelon of society are taught these things, and managing a home is an important duty, and hosting events and doing it exactly right is an entire thing. And especially in the South, I'll say, but Emily Gilmore happens to be up in New England. So it's an important skill for a lot of people, and they feel like it's very important to be a hostess in a specific way. As much as we were sort of like, wow, that's like really getting involved with, how the oranges are sliced. But let's think for a second. You and I both watch things like Chopped. How many times do we hear things like your knife technique and like it doesn't look quite right, or it doesn't, hit your mouth quite right because your cuts aren't quite perfect? She wants everything that everyone is experiencing from top to bottom to be hitting just right. And the type of knife you use would affect how that orange is going to hit your tongue. And she just wants every moment to be perfect. It's clear to me that she was raised in a household that, again, you get the 190 years of like, we were at this elevated level and it's passed down generationally and we care for it to be right. And Oriana even indicated that, like, you know, like she even understood like there's a certain look to this day, a certain behavior, a certain everything to this day that we're all supposed to be participating in.
Oh, you just reminded me, actually, one more thing about that flashback was we learned that when the night she goes and kills Luke and has Mariano drive her over to shoot him, that's the night her father is giving a speech, which made me think, and I doubt we'll ever get confirmation of this, it made me wonder if that was this night that she's having here, but when she was being given the succession talk, was this her father's announcement of, in X number of years, my daughter Beulah will take over the Tempedal, the beef business?
Potentially, because, I mean, even, yes, she had the pregnancy test going on in the bathroom, but she clearly didn't want to go out to the party anyway. And so if she had it in her mind that somehow she did not want to take on the responsibility and the role and continue the family business, if this was essentially her sort of coronation night and she didn't want to go out there for that reason as well, that seems like that would make perfect sense.
It also goes towards the first bit of her speech, which we're going to play the back end of it. I don't know if this part's in the clip, but she says, you know, I'm trying to fulfill tonight a promise I made to my daddy a long time ago. She never actually says what that promise is, though. If she implies it's kind of like at some point you have to hand the reins over, not let the legacy fail because you failed to give it over or stay too long at the party. That, I think that's kind of the implication of it. But it's interesting if the promise that she's trying to fulfill was set on this same night that she ended up not even being at the party, or at least ended up going very late to it. So when you're dealing with 190 years and a lot of family legacy, which we saw with John and Beth and Jamie and Casey in original Yellowstone, there's a lot of legacy and pressure built up about just keeping the thing going without a lot of regard to the physical human toll that it takes to keep the thing going. Let's talk about one of the very first, I think, foreshadowing events of the episode is Joaquin comes into her office as she's working on her speech for later that night. He says to her, you know, well, this is your final speech, because he expects to be appointed and then he would be the next one giving the speech. Given the medical event at the end, I think you and I both agree that we think it looks like a stroke, but maybe this will be her final speech in a very permanent way, or much sooner than anyone realized it would be her final speech. She asks him about his hand and he says, well, it's proof that I'm willing to bleed for Tempedal. Now, Beulah says he shouldn't have to, but it definitely feels like foreshadowing, given how the episode plays out with the conversation with Rob Will, where Rob Will essentially says, like, you know, Chet was always a lousy shot, meaning like, I tried to have you killed and I'm going to have as many chances as a rattlesnake in a hen house. There's a mark now on Joaquin. He may not have a choice but to bleed for Tempedal. And the last bit is that Beulah says, your father would be so proud. And he says he will be. He like puts it in the present tense, which also I think foreshadows this fact that we may see Mariano again sooner rather than later, especially given what happens to Beulah at the end of the episode. It feels like maybe that's going to create a power vacuum into which Mariano, you know, may come out of the shadows and step into. Because if you recall the earliest conversations between Joaquin and Beulah, it was, does my father know about this? Your father has no say in the day-to-day running of the ranch. That's my domain. Well, maybe not anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it also confirms that Joaquin has had a relationship with Mariano and has maintained a relationship with him in such a way that he is comfortable speaking about whether or not his dad would be proud of him and where he stands with his father. The way that Beulah explained it to Beth made it very much sound like he never saw him again, you know, kind of thing. And that's very clear not the truth.
Let's play this clip of Rob Will and Beulah. This is after Oriana leads her into a trap of revealing that Rob Will is not only out of rehab, but there at the party. Let's take a listen.
You know, Granddaddy used to love to tease me. He'd tell me this office was his killing room floor. If I ever stepped foot in here, he'd slaughter me like all those steer. And when I got older, he'd make me sit right there where you are. And he'd make me watch. watch him slaughter the competition.
Yeah, what's that supposed to mean?
My name is Robert William Jackson III. That's my fucking name. This ranch is my legacy.
What? I anoint you days after leaving rehab early? Huh? After a lifetime of second chances?
Well, if you don't, I'll kill him.
Oh, well, I'm not gonna sit here in my office and be blackmailed by you.
You're not being blackmailed, Mona. I'm everything you've always wanted me to be. Clear-eyed, ruthless, a killer. Hell, I'm the image of your father.
I hated my father. He was a miserable man. I prayed to God that you and Joaquin would be happier than him.
You don't believe in God any more than I do. Only God you see is in yourself. That shit is hereditary.
There's a lot to unpack in that clip, but I want to start with the blackmailing aspect of it. She does anoint him. She must believe, right, that he will kill Joaquin if he doesn't do this. Is she blustering? Is she terrified of him? And what did you think about him comparing himself to her father, who she says she hated, but this fact that she has raised him to be what she wanted him to be, including being a killer?
He's leaning on legacy, right? He's leaning on that this is what this ranch is all about. And at the end of the day, the only way that this continues is by her passing it on to him. Going outside the family would go against what her father would have ever wanted. No matter how much she raised Joaquin, he's not her biological son. And this is the only child who is. And I am a product of my making here, right? You allowed my grandfather to have this much influence on me, which makes total sense. I mean, she would have been a very young mother, and the idea that her parents would have had a lot of influence and a big hand in it, and probably even, overrode like any type of commentary she had to say about how he should be parented, makes a lot of sense, that the grandfather would be stepping in. Again, I was saying that I felt like someone would have to come in and sort of be like, I'm his dad or whatever, but maybe that didn't happen. Maybe the grandfather sort of stepped in and somehow they just sort of smoothed over with the town, like we're not going to talk about what went on here with Beulah and who the father is. Maybe that's what happened, and the grandfather just sort of took him in as like, he's the father figure. What would you do if you have one child saying, I'm going to kill the other child if you don't do XYZ, and you know that this man is capable of it? What would you do?
From all of her conversations to others, she seems very over Rob Will and him being around, and she seems to regard him as a mistake, if not in existence, then in how she raised him or the man that he's become. So that Beulah feels like she would strike first to remove him as a threat. But all of that is easier said than done. One, Rip may know a lot of killers, but for as blustering and crooked and dirty, those are words used about Tim Peddle in this episode, I don't know how many killers they actually employ other than Rob Will.
Miguel.
Right. So, she would have to sick a Miguel or maybe a Rip on Rob Will to eliminate that problem, which I don't know. In theory, I don't think she actually would have a problem with based on how she has behaved. It's one thing to think about it. It's another to say, go kill my son. My only biological son.
I think she wants no sons killed. So that's the problem that she's really in. That's not the answer.
She wanted him just to go away, right? She wanted him to be in rehab.
To get healthy, right? Go get healthy and come back, be more mature and be the man I need you to be to take over this ranch. That's what she's desperately wanting.
Which they do at the beginning of the conversation. It was too long for that clip, but he says, I went to rehab, Mama, I'm clean as a whistle. And she's like, oh, are you now? So I don't know if she believes that he can be. I think she would like that, but I don't know that she believes, because they've done this dance before. This is not the first time that he has gone to rehab. And so I think she would like that. I agree with you, but I don't know that she believes that that's possible.
It is just so baked into his personality at this point. I just continue to go back to that interaction with the gun dealer guy and his just unhinged behavior. Everything about it just made me feel like this guy he doesn't just have bad days or bad moments. Like, this is him to his core.
Yeah.
There's times, I know we've seen this on TV with like, or documentaries and stuff where they try to talk about the idea of like having like a school shooter child, right? Like if you're the parent, and what do you do if you know that this child has all these issues, and you can see something in them that is frightening even to you, and you try to get help. And I see this in Beulah. She is trying to get him help. It goes beyond addiction for him. You know, there's something more off about him. And again, we know that he came from a father who was a rapist, you know, so you've already got the genetics of something wasn't right with that man. And then now you add in addiction, and you've created this person who, you know, I don't know what you do. When I reference like the documentaries and stuff, like those parents are like always throwing their hands up, like our world isn't designed to deal with somebody who is like this, you know, who is made genetically and then societally, and then add in addiction, and then add in all this stuff. Like there's no system out here that can really address this. And that's what I see with this guy. Like, I don't know what you're supposed to do.
I think this clip demonstrates in his conversation that we saw with him and Joaquin when they were going to move the West body, he thinks he is the pinnacle of who he's supposed to be. That's what he says in this clip. He's like, I am exactly who you thought I should be, who you raised me to be. I'm exactly who your father was. Whatever he said to Chet to gas him up to go try and take a shot at Joaquin, Rob Will believes this about himself. He believes this is his birthright. He says it in this clip. This ranch is my legacy. He thinks he is just fulfilling his destiny, and he doesn't see the addiction as an issue. Yes, he says it to Rip and stuff, but that's all just tongue in cheek. That's him just making the smallest attempt to paper over the history of their first interaction together. The guy who's giggling with the meth head arms dealer, that's who Rob Will is. The guy who's in this conversation threatening to kill his stepbrother is who Rob Will is.
If what he's saying is true, that then he was, starting out from rape, has addiction, which we know Beulah, also has, and then was raised. So now you have the nature and the nurture here, and then was raised by a man who would make him sit in the chair and watch him do business deals in a way that he's making it sound like was not in good faith, was not kind, was not mutually beneficial to both parties, but instead this ruthlessness of however he handled deals. He had all the cards stacked against him, genetically and the way he was raised. I don't know how Rob Will turns out any other way than the man that we see standing in front of us.
And let's look at the apple in the tree. Watching this scene and watching the way Oriana brings her grandmother, Mama B, into the room, the smile she has, it's like watching Harley Quinn if Harley Quinn was Joker's daughter. Like, that's how these two seem to each other. The way she hugs him during the speech, when Beulah announces him as a successor, like they're the only two knew that was about to happen. Like, the show has done a really good job coming us around and showing us how these two are so much alike. There is a cold-blooded calculation about both of them. I think back to episode 1, and you and I were so, I think, put off by this character initially because it was introduced in such a brash, aggressive way. Like, the first thing we see him doing is shooting this guy in the head, doing a bump of coke. But I want to give credit. I think Jai Courtney actually he has sold me on this character. I actually think he's doing an excellent job here. Like, not that I like the character. I think the character is a piece of shit villain. He's terrifying. Like, this episode really sold me on how scary this guy is. And I think that's up to Jai Courtney, because he is a physically big dude, and I felt it in this episode. I felt the menace, but unhinged menace. Like, Rip is menacing, but he's not like unhinged. Rob Will is big, menacing, intimidating, but he also has an unstable aspect about him that I think we're really seeing, especially in this episode. I think it's great work.
I agree.
Let's get to the speech. This is the 38th Jackson speechifying. It seems that the Jacksons must mark the successor being announced, and maybe also when the first person comes to power, they must give their speeches. So 38 and 190 years. I mean, it feels like a lot of long reigns by Jacksons, but let's take a listen to the speech and talk about what we hear.
I made a promise to my daddy before he passed. One that I finally intend to keep tonight. Some of y'all might say it's been too long coming. That I've been too desperate to hang on to the one thing that we never seem to get enough of. Time. good Lord knows, despite my best efforts, I ain't getting any younger, so. As of tonight, I intend to pass the reins on to the next generation. In 5 years, Robert William Jackson III will be giving this speech as head of Ten Pedal, our beef business, and our upcoming line of ranch-to-table steaks.
I mean, you can hear the crowd murmuring. It was a good job of showing everyone's reactions. We see Rob, Will, and Oriana hugging each other, smiling because they knew. We see Joaquin immediately turn foot and leave. We see Zane's face looking upset, which we're going to get to his clip next. We see Beth actually take a step forward. I think that was a telling one, because one question mark coming out of this for you and me, I think, is what happens to Rip and Beth now? Are they expected to continue working here? Take on the speech. How do you think did she deliver it with confidence and joy? She uses the name that he had just used, the full name he had just thrown out at her. So that feels like a little bit of spite in her voice. This doesn't seem joyful to me.
I mean, yeah, it felt like a hostage speech in a lot of ways to me. Like, this was like a proof of life video in many ways, because you could see that she didn't want to say this. And she knew that, she is somebody who is like a Toastmaster. She plays to the crowd. She wants reactions out of them, and she knows she's going to get a bad one. And so how difficult to have to say the words with confidence, with, like just shooting out all of this, like, I've got this, this is my plan. A, it is not your plan. And B, the reaction you're going to get is terrible. This whole reluctance of like having to portray all of this, I'm doing exactly what I want to be doing, and please don't like throw tomatoes at me kind of thing. Right. And she knows she's disappointing so many people. I mean, from Joaquin to, Zane, who I was actually pretty surprised at his immediate response. I shouldn't be. Of course, he would have done his research and known what the makeup of the family is. And Rob Will's reputation is hardly quiet in the town. It would be very easy to find out more about him. Just across the board. I mean, every person she's looking at, Rip, Beth, everybody, Everett, I'm sure, all the people that she would want to care about their reactions are going to be staring at her and just like mouth agape. What choice did she have? I don't know what she could do. Making this announcement felt like, did she have to do it? Did she have to announce a successor right then? Maybe not. Maybe she could have just been like, thank you so much for coming to the party. Can't wait to see you in 5 years for our next party. She didn't necessarily have to say a successor. But with that threat looming over Joaquin's head, I don't know that she thought there was anything else she could do to protect him than say what she needed to say.
Let's jump to the brothers, because the action that's going to unfold right after this, the two brothers leave. Joaquin grabs his bag and he's trying to get his car, and Rob Will can't but help himself and go tweak him a bit. But things that come out in that conversation is, one, Joaquin says, you fucked yourself. Like, you're going to mess up and she's going to be calling me in 5 days to clean up another mess of yours. Like, nothing was actually decided tonight. It's his starting position. I don't know if it ends there, because Rob Will is unperturbed, and he reveals that he put Chet up to murdering him. He says, well, Chet always was a lousy shot. And Joaquin says, he realizes the implication of that and says, well, you should have finished me yourself because you won't get another chance. Rob Will doesn't even blink. He doesn't flinch. He says, I have more chances than a rattlesnake in a hen house. I don't think Joaquin is coming back to that ranch house. I don't think he can. I don't know how he could close his eyes if he knows Rob Will is within 1,000 feet of him. You know what I mean? We started the season by saying maybe the key to Rip and Beth is them gathering people and gathering intelligence. This feels like a way to get a Joaquin piece fully collected, because the only killer Joaquin may know besides Miguel right now, which may be off limits if Rob Will is about to take seize of the household, is Rip. What was your take on this interaction between the brothers? What do you think this foretells? This, again, more foreshadowing, just this idea of I have more chances to try and kill you. Is there a clock ticking down over Joaquin's head? I guess that's the biggest question.
If I'm Joaquin, I am just like, I cannot even with this family. I mean, he had a go bag ready to go.
Which says a lot.
Joaquin knows the score. He's getting out of there. I'm glad he has the sense to know there is no way you can stick around right now. Rob Will, the way that he has this Eddie Haskell, I don't even know what the current pop culture reference would be. This need to chase after people, whether it was Azul or Joaquin. This need to like he had no need to come out to the driveway. He could have stayed out there gloating and feeling like, ha ha ha, look what's going on with me. He didn't have to do this, but his incessant need to chase his victim is like a part of his personality that is one of the most disgusting parts. It's the most frightening part because like he will not stop chirping in the person's ear. I just wanted Joaquin to get out of there. I didn't know if he was going to make it out of there. Even in that moment in the driveway, like I didn't know.
Oh, the way they were setting up that the cars were blocked in and they had
even the way that the valet was kind of talking to him, there was like a moment where it felt a little like he wasn't instantly friendly to Joaquin in a way that it just struck me as odd in the moment. Is this guy even like in cahoots with Rob Will? Is there more set up for Joaquin than we even know? Is he going to start driving down the driveway and his car is going to blow up? It just seemed like, why are you out here? What are you wanting to see with your eyes? Is it a car blowing up? Is it something? You know what I mean? Like, what did you set up out here? So I was just relieved Joaquin got out of there.
There's a great visual bit that there's no dialogue associated with it, so you just had to be watching the screen. After Rob Will, talks to Beulah, he said, I'm going to go grab a, Topo Chico and go mingle. Beulah comes out onto the top railing overlooking the party, and she's surveying the land, and she sees Rob Will and Joaquin talking in the distance down on like the right side of the lawn. And you can even tell there Rob Will is taking the piss out of Joaquin. Again, he's the younger brother. If you're treating these two as brothers, he's the younger brother. And you know what he does? I don't even know if you saw this or caught this, but I say the listeners go back and watch it. He flicks his hat, and the way he flicks it, he says to him, he's like, what are you doing with your stupid little hat? Like you think you're the big boss now with your cowboy hat? Because that's the exact flick. Like that's the words that go with that kind of flick. Like you look silly. Rob Will he's all about the bullying.
He's such a bully.
He's such a bully.
That's the word I want to use. He's such a bully. And it's unbelievable to watch it. You don't have characters like that on TV that often anymore, that are that blatant a bully.
Even Eddie Haskell, he was slimy and a bully, but not in such a violent, malicious way. Like, this is the evolution. This is the 2026 version of that,
I don't know if I would call Eddie Haskell a bully, because that actually takes it to me like the flick of the hat. He wouldn't necessarily do that, because he did a lot of like with his words and that laugh, right? Yeah. And the menacing, the physical presence, that lurking, that hanging over your shoulder, that being in your personal space, that whole vibe is like all a part of that. It's almost comical in the way that he's such a big man and he's like running after people. Like there's something about that feels so desperate and like weak. Like, why are you so insecure that you have to talk so close to people's faces? Like you're so intent on being in their personal space as if you can't be heard or they won't see you. It's coming from insecurity. If you just stand up tall at a normal distance speaking to someone, you have to bend down and get in their ear and do all that. It's all this intimidation stuff that no doubt was done to him. I'm sure that Beulah's father did the same kind of crap.
There's a lot of learned behavior that we're seeing in this episode. The way he was describing being forced to watch his grandfather humiliate and backstab business people. Like this is a manifestation or an escalation of that kind of behavior.
I'm even going to say this is like a really funny little side note, but the Shockwave is a ride where people would probably scream and cry on it. And if you're somebody who would want to operate a ride where when people came off the ride, they were like screaming and crying, you're a certain kind kind of person.
Yeah, like masochist. One of the classic villain tropes is that they always monologue, right? The evil villain monologuing of their plans and stuff. But there's another villain trope, and I think Rob Will has a bit of this, is the playing with their food. It's not enough to defeat someone. It's before you put them out of their misery, you torture them a little bit, you play with them a little bit, the making people scream, maybe I leave a bolt a little bit loose so it rattles and, shakes you a little bit more. Not enough to get caught, but enough for you to like live in fear with me, because that has like a psychological factor to it.
The type of person who would stomp the brake and make everybody get like whiplash at the end, like that kind of crap, where sometimes they will like stomp on it and like jerk you so hard, and it's like there's no reason to do that, but like he would get like a thrill out of doing that to people, watching them lurch forward and stuff.
Let's go back inside the party and listen to Zane confronting Beulah, which on a night that has not gone the way she wanted, this was maybe the last thing she wanted to have an interaction with.
I give you a deal, and all of a sudden you decide to retire?
I'm a ranch girl, Zane. Beth and Rip are the brains behind the operation.
You sold me on you. I'm telling the story of you, not just your ranch.
Come, dear. You're gonna love my son. He's a real deal.
Your son's a drug addict.
I mean, ouch. You're going to love my son. I mean, this is her trying to shine a turd, because he's not fooled. He did his research, just like you said a couple minutes ago. Your son is a drug addict. Is this anything more than her trying to just make the best of a bad situation? Or she seemed genuinely shocked that he was having this immediate reaction. That's how I took it anyway. I don't think she was planning on this conversation.
Yeah, I don't think that he was on her radar in the same way. I mean, think about what's going on. I mean, she's got one son threatening to kill the other. I mean, that right. is way, way, way in what's going on in her mind right now, and turning over the ranch to Rob Will. I mean, this is her entire lifetime legacy. Her most recent business deal is not up there in the top two, right then. And I didn't expect Zane, frankly. It wouldn't have surprised me to have him make a face, maybe make a remark to Beth, and right. turn on his heels and be like, my people will be in touch.
You guys sold me
something
a bill
like
of
that.
goods. Right.
I think it was surprising that he would walk up to the party host in front of everybody and start yelling about their business. That isn't very business-like. That isn't what I expected him to do.
A contract is only done, among other requirements, when there is a meeting of the minds, right? When the two parties clearly agree on essential terms. She was giving this speech, and originally it was supposed to be in, let's say, 5 years, which is the length of the Rip and Beth contract. So at the end of that, in 5 years, I'm going to name Joaquin my successor. So she was giving this succession speech. She just changed the name. That doesn't change that Zane, maybe he wouldn't be like your son's a drug addict aspect of it, but I still think he would be pissed at her naming a successor when the ink is like not even dried on their contract yet. So it feels like a fundamental aspect of the conversation in his office was not had. How long are you planning on staying working with the ranch if I agree to, give you guys this deal, this exclusive deal?
What is the plan for succession in your business? I think that is an actually very natural thing that you would discuss.
You would think.
But at the same time, it would be one thing to choose a successor. It's who she chooses as the successor. Anyone who even just was around Rob Will would get the stink line vibes off of him that this guy is, he probably smells like alcohol for one. I just think his overall demeanor would be off-putting. If I'm Zane, I'm like, this guy is the guy I'm going to have to deal with. This is not okay by me. I'm just very surprised for, given the decorum and everything that was followed in going to go see him and all of the steps that everybody took. I was surprised that he would lose his cool like that in such a public way.
For me, it was unfortunate because I really wanted to see how the conversation would play out. This is the exact moment that Carter comes stumbling down the stairs with the longhorns and then smashes it. She interrupts her conversation with Zane to scream across the lawn, put that down. And then when everyone's backs are turned to her, she grabs the left side of her neck and then falls to the ground. You're guessing stroke. That feels right to you?
Yeah, it does. And probably would even, like, if she had some blockage in her arteries or whatever, could probably answer all of our stuff about why she's feeling so tired.
You've been on that from the beginning. So I think this feels like it's paying off, you picking up on those signs.
I didn't necessarily expect her to go down like that. If there was anything that woman could have done to stay up on her feet, I guarantee you she would have. All these things are happening. Her one son walks out, the other one is grinning like the Cheshire Cat. She's got the biggest business deal of her lifetime screaming in her face. She's got the legacy Longhorn smashed to the ground. Her entire world is crumbling in front of her.
So you're talking metaphor of the Longhorn snapping as metaphor for her world. Yeah.
When I was just watching this, I was thinking I don't care what you think about Beulah. I don't care if you think she is the villain of the whole show or if she deserves any sympathy at all. But for me, just all of those things happening at once, I don't know very many people who wouldn't crumble. That was insane, the amount of things that happened.
Let's shift now to young Carter, since we're ending with him smashing the horns. Let's actually back up and talk about him in this episode. I want to play this first clip with him and Rip before Beth comes out, before they leave the Dutton Ranch to head over to the party, because I think this is a pickup of where we were left off with him talking with Oriana on the boat last week.
I was thinking you could come to the 10 pedal and help out on the weekends.
Sounds cool.
Yeah. How's school going?
Fine, I guess.
You learn anything?
Just getting by. Thank you, by the way.
For what?
Giving me a place to live. Looking after me. Everything you and Beth have done. Really.
You don't have to thank me, son. I want you to have fun tonight, all right?
That thank you for looking after me and giving me a place to live and all that stuff. It definitely felt like there was a but that was coming after there, right? But I'm leaving, but I'm moving out, but I need to be my own man. He didn't really get to that part. He does kind of roll his eyes though when Rip says, "You don't have to thank me, son." Is he trying to show gratitude, which he said last week he was having trouble feeling for Rip and Beth? Or was this a prelude to him trying to work up the nerve for a larger conversation?
I don't know if it's either of those two things exactly. I think that it's playing out sort of in real time. He explained to us and has been thinking about this gratitude issue that he's grappling with and how to sort of deal with, how do I be their son and want to be respectful and want to listen to how they're trying to raise me. And also, I'm 19 and I have been on my own for most of my life, and I don't really know how to continue to sort of be like a kept man. I was really happy that Rip was offering the job. I wish there could be just more there where they could start to be school's not really the thing, Rip. I'm happy to work and I want to be working, and this is where I need to be at this stage of my life.
I think just that sounds cool to the job, and then his very non-committal, it's just getting by, talking about school, I think demonstrated that part very much so. I want to be working. I think his actions tonight probably preclude him from being able to work at 10 pedal going forward.
God.
But I think this thank you speech, though, actually to me, it almost felt like he was repudiating the idea that he's their son. Because these are not words you say to someone if you feel like you're their son. This is the words he was using and the tone he used was, thank you to Rip Wheeler and to Beth Dutton for giving me housing these 5 years. But I am not your son. Because if it was, I think there's something in there where you add, thank you for treating me like your son, or thank you for taking care of me like one of your own. And I think this was very specifically not that. I think that's why he kind of smiles. He doesn't roll his eyes. He looks to himself. He smiles to himself and looks away when Rip says, "You don't have to thank me, son." Because I think that was the exact opposite of what the tone he wanted to, invoke.
But what if it's more guilt that you're seeing? Maybe it's more like he's calling me son and I'm not acting like a son.
Right.
I'm not actually I'm lying to him right now to his face about school, and that's how I'm taking it. I felt like he had to break eye contact and look away because he's God, these guys, they do love me so much and they do care about me so much. I don't know if Rip needed to say son. I think real hard about that because of what a big deal it was to suddenly become, in John's eyes, a son, and how big that is. And Rip is sort of giving that to Carter much more casually than it was given to Rip.
Now, it was interesting because did he mean son like son, or did he mean it like boy or kid?
No, I think he meant it like son.
You do? Okay, because sometimes older men would talk to a younger guy and be like, son, listen here. Like, but not
Rip,
mean it
though.
as son. No, I agree with I agree with you. But I think that's a way that some people may take it, though. But I think he was saying son like.
You have to know Rip's history. You have to know what being called a son means. If you don't know Rip's history, if you didn't watch the Yellowstone, if you're just joining us with Dutton Ranch, being called a son, being considered part of the biological family, even if you're not, this is way weightier than just a casual buddy chief little guy. It's not just a nicety. He is saying it with a lot of meaning behind it.
Let's get to the party. Carter is very excited to get inside, find Oriana, but when he does, she is talking to one Harrison Williams, former Aggie and current builder.
Oh, there's no former Aggie. You said that all wrong.
She is talking to Harrison Williams, Aggie, who also seems like he is a budding house builder built on his father's money. I think this was interesting because I think it kind of confirms that Oriana did go to college for a little bit of time, because they're talking about having shared a finance class together where she used his notes, and that was how she got through the class. So just kind of throw away more world building, because you and I have discussed, like, is Oriana high school age? Is she in her 20s? Like, she seems, I think this kind of confirms she's probably very much in her 20s.
Do you think she graduated? What do we think happened? And I don't think we ever thought she was high school age. I think we've maintained the entire time she was
older than him. Right, yeah, for sure. But I think this kind of confirms it, though, in a way they have never, ever said, because the only conversation about her schooling at all is that when she's in the truck with Beth and she's like, are you in school anymore? And she's like, no, not anymore. So my feeling is she probably did not graduate. I don't have any proof for that one way or the other, but at least we know at some point she was in college. As soon as she kind of blows him off, she's like, why don't you go get a drink? And she could have just said kid in there, and I think it would have hit just as hard for Carter. I had in my notes, he is going to make a scene before the end of this night. He will get drunk and make a scene before the end of this night.
What do we think about the idea that Rip was sharing a beer with him before they even left?
I hate all of that shit. I hate all of it.
Why are they doing this? Like, why are they pushing this so hard? You know, on one hand, they're acting like you belong in high school. And on the other hand, you guys are drinking a beer out there. Like, it didn't work for me at all. And then the constant pushing of drinking from everybody just was sort of like, it felt beyond a setup. Like, there's no way he wasn't going to be wasted in like 5 minutes by every adult around him.
There's some interesting foreshadowing with Carter with this episode, because one of my favorite parables you hear, I first heard it in West Wing, actually, but it comes up all the time, about the guy who's waiting for a sign from God during the flood, and the rowboat comes and he refuses it, and the helicopter comes and he refuses it, and he goes up to the pearly gates and he's like, I sent you a rowboat, I sent you a helicopter, what were you waiting for? Because he keeps waiting for a sign from God. Carter is just mean mugging, like, stink lines, watching Oriana and Harrison talk to each other right by the bar. He never really leaves the bar area. Sheriff Wade comes over, sees him, and says, don't get into a fight with him. Don't get into a fight with Harrison. That's going to end bad for you. And then tries to explain to him that Oriana and Harrison are the upstairs. Carter is in the basement. He's not even the downstairs. He is in the basement. And for his part, Sheriff Wade sees himself as in an elevator going up. And then later on, Everett comes and gives him 2 pieces of party advice. One, it's okay to just stand there and with your drink in your hand and someone's going to come along and talk to you. And it's also okay that when you've had enough of being around people, to go off into a quiet place and just be by yourself. And I feel like Carter refuses both of those pieces of advice in a constructive way. He does eventually wander off to a peace and quiet place, but that leads to him stealing the Longhorns. Did you have any doubt that it was going to end with him doing something?
At the very least, embarrass himself, have a fight. I didn't exactly expect destruction of property. That wasn't exactly where I was going, but definitely embarrass himself without a doubt. Maybe just fall down the stairs. Maybe just get in a fight and something really serious happens. Knocks over a bunch of stuff or something like that. I didn't see this coming.
Let's listen to the conversation that really pushes him over the edge. This is Oriana and Carter talking later in the night. Night has fallen and he's pretty drunk at this point already. I think this is the culmination of all of the things Oriana has been gassing him up to do this entire series. If you listen to their first conversation where they're shooting bottles, she tells him, no one can tell you what to do. You're your own man. Do whatever the fuck you want to do. In the boat scene, she tells him, you don't belong to anyone. Don't let anyone say that you're theirs. Not even mine. Be your own man. This beating, this trying to gas him into being a man that she could respect, kind of. I think this is the culmination of all of that. Let's take a listen.
He's a college boy.
Excuse me?
I don't know, you go fishing with him too? Shoot bottles? Fuck him?
Jesus. If I did, it wouldn't be any of your goddamn business.
I bet his daddy's money turned you on. That's it,
Harrison's a bull. He's not a steer. You walk around with this wound, Carter, and you expect me to do something about it? Well, that's not my fucking job. If you want any part of this ranch, if you want me, quit acting like a fucking scarecrow bear.
Fuck you.
Now, if you can recall, I fucked you. For what it's worth. I fucked Harrison too.
I mean, she's just throwing a lit match on a gasoline pile here. She's trying to get him to do something. I think she was trying probably getting him to fight Harrison, because I think that's the kind of shit, like her father, she wants to see the world burn a bit. I don't think she had steal the Longhorn and smash it on the stairs in front of the party on her bingo card.
I mean, I just think she's a shit stirrer, so I don't think that there's anything in particular in mind. There's a really widely accepted idea these days that it's not a woman's job to fix or raise a man anymore. Like, if you can't do it, I mean, when she said, it's not my job, like, it's one of the few times I actually appreciated a line she said, which was like, stop turning to me, stop looking at me for direction, stop trying to wait for me to tell you what to do, like, figure it out on your own, and then you have a chance with me. But stop expecting me to lead you by the nose. Like, not only is it not attractive, but I'm not gonna do it. Like, you're a waste of my time. There are too many men out here who have direction. You know, again, it was one of the few moments in time that I felt like, all right, Oriana, you've got a point here that I'm willing to accept. She's been gaslighting this guy the entire time, and we all know that. But she also didn't exactly hide that. I mean, when he said, I love you, she didn't say it back. You know, she's hanging out with him, but if you go just by words, I would say she's not leading him on. If you go by actions, I think she's been leading him on.
But he sounds like a little boy at the beginning of this conversation. Like, how's college boy?
He's literally whining. And
I don't think she would have gone at him with this, like, I fucked you and I fucked him too. Like, I don't think any of that until he did it. I mean, he was like, his daddy's money turns you on. Like, you know, he sounds like a little kid here. And I think she knows exactly what she's doing with the bull versus steer. For those that don't know, steer are castrated male cows and bulls are male cows that have their testes in working order and can breed. The biology of it would, I think, fly over a lot of people's heads. But to a cowboy rancher guy, I think this is about the nastiest thing she could possibly say to him. But he's coming at her like a little boy. And so I think she's just trying to put him in his place once and for all.
And that doesn't necessarily mean go fight Harrison. It means go get a job, go do go build your future, figure yourself out, figure your plan out. Like, I'm not going to sit around here and plan your future with you. Like, you figure it out. And then you come to me with like what your plan is. Like, that's part of the thing. Like, Carter, he is just wanting to like climb in her lap and be like, hold me. And it's like, Carter, come on. Like, all your immaturity is showing here.
Beth has Rip get Carter out of the party right in the confusion of Beulah's medical emergency. I have a feeling that he is going to be blamed for her stroke. While I think there are a lot of factors at play, I think the sequence of events that everyone there saw was him coming down the stairs, smashing the horns, she grabs her neck and falls to the floor. Just if perception is reality, I think it's going to be perceived that boy's heinous actions. I mean, Sheriff Wade comes forward and says, "This is bad business, kid. Don't do it." And Rip gets to him just a half second too late. As Rip is about to reach out to grab him is when he turns and spikes the horns. He's going to become Zachariah in the town in a way, right? If something truly horrible happens to Beulah, even if people don't like the Jacksons, he's going to be scapegoated for causing her malady.
And I don't know where this is going to leave Rip and Beth. You know, if Rob Will is going to step into these shoes sooner than later because Beulah is in hospital, I don't know where it leaves the Duttons, just generally speaking. We pretty much knew that the situation was going to be probably pretty short-lived at the 10 Pedal. You know, she said, "Give me a week," you know. We didn't know where this was heading, but I don't know, how do the Duttons come back the next day to go to work? How?
I have no idea. Let's talk about Beth and Rip and their play at the party, which actually was a very minor part of the whole episode.
This must have been the smallest amount of script that they had this entire season so far.
They were very much restricted to just kind of watching, right? They were just present to see everything happening here with only a little bit of interaction. So one thing I think people, this actually seemed playful in the moment, but I think a lot of people would miss it unless you had closed captioning on. When they first show up at the party, they're going up the stairs, and Rip stays behind for a second, and Beulah says, "You look sharp as a tack" to Rip. He says back to her, like, "You look sharp too." And it's very playful. Whatever their relationship is.
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there, because I have to tell you, I said out loud, Beth's going to let that happen and not say anything? And then boom, it was like the perfect timing, because she turns around, she's like, "Are you flirting?" And I was like, oh my God, because it seemed like the shot was over. Like they were heading up the steps. And I literally out loud was like, no way is Beth not going to say anything.
They are moving out of frame. Beth is almost completely out of frame, but she turns over her shoulder and says, "You're flirting?"
I almost wonder if it was improvised.
I agree. I think
was so...
It made me laugh,
I cannot even believe the amount of beats that happened before she said it, because she was having to sit there. There was more than just that back and forth. I mean, they were doing it back and forth for like a minute or two before. I was just like, oh no, do not let that lie, Beth. And then boom, she did. I was like, ah.
If you were meant to really pick up on it, I think it was shot weirdly, but it felt like just kind of a natural couple reaction that just kind of got caught on film. It felt much more like that. So I liked it. It made me laugh. But inside the party, Beth just she is singularly focused with this plan that she has. And part of this is making all of this like, I'm just here to assist Beulah and lift her up and glorify her. Because when Everett and Beth are talking with Beulah, Beth is just hammering home that it was Beulah's performance that charmed Zane and sealed the deal. And she's saying it to Everett because obviously she sees these two. That's going to be interesting because it's the first time I think we have seen Beth see these two together romantically. And I couldn't really gauge her face watching them, but I'm sure there's going to be some kind of reaction or fallout to seeing that. But in the moment, she's complimenting Beulah's performance to Everett, and Everett is interesting because he says, I know a good pairing when I see it. So it almost feels like Everett is taking credit for all of this in a way.
Oh, he is, for sure.
I think another masterstroke move, again, just showing how good Beth is. There's a little bit of a Chekhov's gun because when they show up at the party, she's got that green bag that Beulah says, "What's in the bag?" And she's like, "I'll show it to you later when it's the right time." Well, inside there, she knew Zane would show up. She knew she would have a moment when they were all around, and she presents him with these spurs. And even Rip does his part with a goofy, it's so watching Rip and Cole Hauser kind of be cheesy. And he goes, "Those are some fancy spurs." like really kind of doing his part, trying to do his part for look.
He's doing the Vanna White part where he's like showcasing them with his hands, like da da da.
Here's an authentic cowboy saying these are fancy spurs, But she's so smart that she does it in the presence of Beulah, so it looks like it is a present from Beulah and 10 Pedal. But it's just a masterstroke on Beth's part. She's so good at all of this stuff. I love watching her do this stuff. You know what I mean?
It was a perfect gift. I mean, Zane was completely won over.
That's it. I mean, that other than the step forward, Beth takes a very dramatic step forward that the camera catches when Beulah announces Rob Will's name. So it seems like she must have known of the succession plan. That seems right to me, but I'm sure she knew it as Joaquin's name was the one who was supposed to be said. And immediately when she sees Carter coming down the stairs, her thing to Rip is go get him. You know, she sees it like a minute before everyone else sees what's going to happen. So
that would have been so horrifying. I honestly, Carter, I do not know how anyone comes back from this. I really don't. We knew it would be so short, but this was like crazy short.
Bringing shame on yourself is one thing, but when you're a Dutton or you're a Rip, a Wheeler, to bring shame on your family, that's a cardinal sin that it just is not will not be. They will not allow it to abide. Let's deal with a little quick Rip here. What did you think of seeing Rip in a suit? This is one of the rare times I think we've ever seen fancy dressed up Rip.
Oh, I love it. Always hot business. Rip has to give his obligatory that he has to put it on, but oh well.
Well, he comes out, right, and he says to Carter, he's like, you look ridiculous, and Carter's like, you look ridiculous, and the both of them are. Neither of them look ridiculous. They look fine and clean and nice. What did you think of Rip's conversational style? He has an interaction with both Joaquin and Rob Will, where essentially they both want to chat him up, and his reaction was, yeah, good, thanks, good luck with that, and blows by them. These are ostensibly his employer.
His retort for everything is like, nope. Like he just basically doesn't want to have any conversation. The complete like juxtaposition between having Everett have these conversations with Carter about like how to be at a party and here's these different he's going to give him versus watching Rip, who's just like, if someone comes over and talks to you, just walk away. Like that's his style. And it's like, on one hand, I respect the guy because he's like, I'm just not going to be pulled into your drama. Like, I'm not doing this. I'm not going to be a part of this. There's something about that feels like, I don't know, he gets a pass. Like, he's allowed to do that. He's allowed to have these boundaries that other people would be called on. You can't just walk away from someone in a conversation. Even Rob Will, he's one of the few people that Rob Will doesn't hunt down and continue to chirp in their ear. So that's saying something.
None of these people seem like they're used to people walking away from them. I don't think that happens in Joaquin or Beulah or Rob Will's life ever, because everyone that works for them, I think, lives in fear of them. So he's like not even like a different kind of guy. I think he must seem like a different species.
I mean, just generally being Southern, this is very unusual. I mean, the strong silent type exists, but there's still, niceties that everybody goes along with. So he's definitely creating a whole different vibe.
The interesting thing was that more so than the conversation with Rob Will, it was actually Joaquin, because Joaquin wanted to come over and reassure him because he doesn't know Rip, doesn't understand Rip, so he thinks that he needs to reassure Rip that no one's going to come looking for Chet, and he was a drifter when he showed up, and Rip just cuts him off. He's like, I'm not fucking worried about no Chets in the world, or I'm not worried about blowback or ramifications. You have a good night. Maybe you're shitting yourself, but like I am not. Like my pulse is exactly where it is and not elevated, and I sleep fine at night. I think Joaquin lives in a world where everything is feared or to be feared. They don't understand Rip. They don't know Rip. They don't know his capacity, which is interesting to watch them learn in real time.
I think it also just shows their age. Joaquin is a much younger man who has a lot to lose, and Rip has lost so much that he's not going to sweat the small stuff. And weirdly, the small stuff can include things like Chet.
Let's finish the episode by talking about the ranch hands. So I think it was interesting that Beulah says essentially, y'all would just embarrass me because that's what always happens. So I've opened up an open tab at the Split Heart Bar. Yeah, she should have sent Carter along to the Split Heart Bar, as it turned out also. I think it's interesting that Austin asked permission that if all things equal, he'd rather stay in his bunk, and Miguel says no. They are playing cards. I think Azul and Zachariah here is very interesting because they're holding court. They get along with most of these guys. They're hooting and stuff and having good times. Azul's wowing everyone with his football stories. But then the other table, Tommy and another 10-pedal guy are playing cards with a Midnight Wells rancher. The guy stands up, says, you're a dirty cheater, you're crooked just like 10-pedal. and leaves. It comes back, he brings his boys, they have a fight. The scene is very funny to me because Azul literally is hooting. He's literally like, "Whoo, damn!" He's like commentating, like color commentating this fight. Him and Zachariah are having the best time of their life, really not doing much. Miguel isn't doing anything. He's just watching all of this play out as the bar gets torn to hell. But then at the end of the fight, Ten Petal wins. They're seen cleaning up the bar. Miguel still hasn't moved. Austin has no chill, gives this little speech. Let's take a listen.
Hey, felt good, didn't it? Just like old times.
They ain't wrong. Ten Petal's dirty. Corrupt. We're all fucked. And we never say shit about it. Not to each other, not to anyone. Do us a favor. Let it go. All we've been doing is letting it go. Now Chet's going missing too? I'm saying this as a friend. Shut the fuck up, Austin.
I really think Tommy means that as a friend. Shut the fuck up. He tried telling Chet. He's tried telling Austin. You gotta think, isn't Austin just writing his death warrant? He's doing this in front of Miguel. How does he think this plays out for him?
I don't think he is thinking about that exactly. Not in the way we want him to be, right? Because I mean the consequences for going against all these people is pretty clear. We're missing 2 guys now.
Right.
So it's pretty clear that if you speak up, like, we know what's going to happen. He's just so sick of it. And we still, again, we haven't had anyone write in or anyone tell us, like, how does it work in a bunkhouse? Is he under contract? Why can't he just leave? Why doesn't he just go somewhere else? If he's this upset and this distraught over this entire situation, why doesn't he just pack his bag and head out? There's something that I wish we understood more about the dynamics of why he has to work there.
I don't actually have a problem with him giving the speech, and because he says more than he has said previously. He's like, we all see it. We don't talk about it. We don't even talk about it to each other. Like, his points are being well raised, but you got to pick your time and a place. Your boss's direct henchhound is sitting right there listening. Do you think he's not paying attention to you, just talking against your employer and the Ten Petal? Like, you're not thinking, like, what do you think happened to Wes and to Whitney and to Chet? Like, as far as you know, you have to assume they're all dead, and the only thing they all did was speak out at some point of someone who was in charge of Ten Petal. From Austin's standpoint, it must look like Rip did in Chet, because Chet was ornery and was vocal against him about taking over the bunkhouse. And as far as he knew, Wes got on the wrong side of Chet and maybe Rob Will. And that Whitney also was barking, and now she's gone. Like, the breadcrumbs are there, my man. Like, why are you opening your mouth? But there's another aspect here that really I was thinking about, because if you go back to, like, how the Yellowstone Ranch was run, the ranch hands would never speak out in public against the Yellowstone. More than just the brand, which for most of the show, most of the bunkhouse boys did not have the Yellowstone brand. Just the culture of the bunkhouse that John and Rip had set, they would never speak against the family in public. Maybe they would grouse amongst themselves in the bunkhouse, and I think that would be accepted. But they would never do it where others could see them or hear them. And here you have Azul and Zachariah. These are not Ten Petal employees. These are outsiders. And you're going off not only in front of Miguel, but you're going off in front of Azul and Zachariah, who you know are just gathering info for Rip and Beth.
Well, and it's a public place. I mean, I know that they're not showing us the entire bar all the time, but I mean, there's other townies
Carol, the
there.
bartender's
there's a bartender. There's
Yeah.
everybody. I mean, like, it is speaking out of turn. And again, like, it's not cool. And this is just where I'm like, I just feel like he's
It's
at
not
like his
smart.
wit's end.
It's not smart is the problem. It's yeah.
I don't know what he thinks he's going to accomplish. I don't think he thinks he's giving some like rousing Notre Dame kind of like, let's get out there and do this. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like, you're not
like
rallying the
up,
troops
right.
here at all. He just seems like he doesn't have any direction or know what to do. The fact that he was just willing to stay back, and I appreciate that Miguel was like, we're not going to do that. We've got to stick together like as this group. I see what he's doing. I see what he's trying to do, but I think his days are numbered. I don't know how he really gets out of this situation here.
In the same way Chet made himself a loose thread that had to be dealt with, Austin is an even bigger loose thread, because he's been asking the wrong kinds of questions. That goes back to Beulah and Joaquin talking about it before they even hired Rip. He's been asking that, well, Beulah said to Chet, Austin has been asking the wrong kinds of questions and won't shut up. Tommy has told him and beaten him. Remember, it was Tommy and Austin that got into the fight that led to Austin getting that broken arm at the hands of Chet and the branding iron. That was Tommy again trying to tell him, move on and shut the fuck up. And he just won't listen. Well, dude, now Miguel heard you. Now someone who is invested in keeping you silent has now heard. To say nothing of outsiders have now heard you. Just bad business, man. Bad business.
Agreed. I don't know how he gets out of this,
2 more episodes left in this season and a lot of dangling threads. This show has answered some questions, but man, it has raised more. I feel like we are going to be in for a chaotic final 2 episodes of the season as we deal with the Beulah stroke fallout or medical condition fallout, Rob Will being back in the scene, what happens with Beth and Rip, what happens with Carter. A lot of question marks here. What else am I missing? What are you looking to resolve, or do you expect to be resolved in these final 2 hours?
Well, I just wonder how much has been undone. There's so many things that we built up, like the Zane deal, even Carter and Oriana being like somewhat of a couple, Rip and Beth moving over to the 10 pedal and sort of ensconcing them into that world. How much did this episode undo? Where do we stand now for all of these people? So I look forward to it. This is Caroline.
And this is Mike. Thank you for listening to the Yellowstone Podcast, Dutton Ranch. If you wouldn't mind heading over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and rate, review, and subscribe. And while you're there, if you could leave us a 5-star review, if you write something nice, we're going to read it on the show because we want to hear from you. We want to interact with you. It helps in promotion of the show.
Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you for listening. This has been an original Pod Clubhouse production. Pod Clubhouse is a podcast network dedicated to encouraging collaboration among podcasters and friends to bring a fresh voice and diverse perspective on a wide array of content. Please visit and leave a comment for us at podclubhouse.com. Rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast feeds on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can find us at Pod Clubhouse. Our DMs are always open, and we'd love to hear from you.